Welcome back, Planeswalkers, to another episode of the Hive Mind. My name is Jon Dunning. This is the show where I traverse the multiverse in search of other prominent members of the Magic the Gathering community. And while you're out traversing, why don't you head on over to cardsphere.com. That's right, cardsphere.com is simply the very best place to buy, sell, and trade your paper Magic the Gathering cards online. While you're out traversing, why don't you head on over to inkedgaming.com, enter a promo code HiveMindMTG to receive 10% off your purchase. So we've been gone for a while, but I'm so glad to be back because I have not only a fantastic content creator, but also a dear friend. Planeswalking in from the Great White North of Toronto, Canada, I have Groucho Marco. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm super stoked to talk to you, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, or fortunately for a lot of people, but unfortunately for us, Magic Fest Vegas 2019 is happening, and we stayed home.
Yeah, exactly.
At least we have each other, sir.
Yeah, the outcasts of the Magic community.
Oh, I know. It's so funny, too, because, I did 22 years in that place, and, now that I moved, that's when it just got so incredible, and it just became, the Comic-Con of the Magic community.
Yeah, I've heard some good things about Las Vegas, specifically in the last couple of years, but obviously, yeah, the Magic Fest there now is the mecca of Magic, so it's a little sore to be missing it, but, these things happen. We have each other.
We have each other. We get to do this, so we're winning. But in all seriousness, is that something that is on the docket for you? Like future plans, do you plan on going to any more events, whether they be in Vegas or otherwise?
Yeah, I really, really enjoy going to both Magic tournaments and what we now call Magic Fests. Mm-hmm. And I definitely plan to be to the Canadian ones this year, but for sure, long term, I'd like to get to Vegas eventually. I was actually thinking about going this year, but I ended up moving back to Canada this summer, and it was just too much to juggle the return to another country while also managing a trip to Las Vegas. I just couldn't make it work in my head. So
sure.
I decided to skip it this time. I'm hoping to be there in the future though.
Awesome. You said you like going. Have you been to any of the other big events? What's the biggest event that you've been to?
I've been to because it happened in the past. I'm not even sure, should we call it a GP or a Magic Fest?
Right.
But the ones in Toronto and Montreal I've been to before.
Oh, nice. Pretty big turnouts. You get to meet some pretty cool people. And
so that was before I was making content. So it's not like I had people coming up to me and being like, "Hey, you're Groucho," or whatever. But I always enjoy meeting people at those kind of things, and the format that I end up playing the most, just because it's what appeals to me the most, is limited, and you're just kind of forced together in these pods, and you get to see people's personality a little bit through the way they draft.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we usually talk about is favorite formats and whatnot, and we always kind of say especially for the Commander folk, that EDH is kind of that great icebreaker. But I guess depending on who you're playing with, I guess draft can be that too, because that really forces you to interact with people in a very different way than EDH does. So it's something I haven't thought about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing about EDH is that it's a pretty large time commitment usually, whereas drafting, you can the initial draft is pretty quick, and then each match that you play against someone can go long, but tends to be a reasonable amount of time for a match, and then you can go on to the next person. So if you're having a bad time with a player, you just kind of move on, and you're more likely to hit people you have something in common with than not when you're at an LGS or whatever. Yeah,
you're a different kind of guest for the Hive Mind. You've already been on the channel. You've been on 10th Street Hooligans. You were talking lore. I think we had Trapixium on. That was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
I really felt like you had so much of an impact on the creative Magic community in such a short period of time, and I felt like your story warrants more of a personalized focus. That's why I asked you on this. So with that said, let's talk about your journey so far as a creative.
Yeah.
Just that experience of being that person, like you said, showing up, being a fan of the game, showing up to Magic Fest or GPs, and then deciding, hey, I have something to say, something amazing to say in your case. What was that initial kind of spark?
Well, I think the one thing about me is that I never ever thought I'd make content because unlike people like, Vince Pleasant Kenobi or Connor from Spice 8 Rack, I don't consider myself like a performer in any way. Like, I don't think I'm someone who like turns on with the camera. So for me, content creation, I've always approached it from like a fan's perspective or an appreciator's perspective, where I've just watched Magic content for so long.
Sure.
And we talked about this actually a little bit when I was on 10th Street Hooligans, but the thing that made me like jump into it was Ristic Studies, Sam's video on running, where he related his experience with Magic to his experience as an athlete or as a runner. And that just like opened a door for me on the kind of connections you can make using the game, and showed me a map for a way I could talk about the game in a way that didn't require me to be a performer or B, like a high level competitive expert. It just required a different kind of lens to kind of analyze the game that I've been trying to use since those initial videos that I came out with.
The first video that I saw from you, I could say, I'm like, this has a Ristic study stank on it, but it just you made it your own. Like it has like a certain kind of comedy to it too, and very conversational.
Right.
Sam has a way of picking a subject and being very like surgically precise on it, where it feels like you're talking in a room with a buddy when I'm watching a Groucho Marco video.
I'm so happy to hear that.
In general, we're so fortunate to have so many talented people in the community lending their creative vision of how this game, lends itself individually, from a cosplay to gameplay. Magic the Gathering has transcended the tabletop for sure. What is it about the game that inspires so many so diversely, and how did it pull that kind of specific voice out of you?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that today a little bit because I was watching coverage of Magic Fest Vegas, and one thing I was thinking about is that all this talk of like best of one that Wizards was really pushing around the kind of open beta launch of Magic Arena. How they seemed like they were staking the future of Magic in best of one. I always thought that was like a weird misunderstanding of what initially draws people to this game, which is in some way the complexity of it, the promise that you're going to be able to put hours into this game and it's going to reward you with skills and experience that you feel are significant.
Right.
And I think that's what's great about things like drafting and things like a 3-game sideboarded match, where you have to learn all these different skills and there are all these different variables in play. And I think for a certain kind of person, that's very, very attractive. And the kind of people that's attractive to are people who are kind of self-motivated or driven in by things that are, driven by ambitions that maybe a less complicated game couldn't satisfy. And when you call to people like that, when you call for these different individuals that have a lot of innate talent, that's going to flourish in a million different ways. And I think that's what you see so beautifully in the Magic community, is that we get all of these incredible folks who express that love in such unique ways.
Yeah, it really does. Like it's on surface level, it's a card game, and then but when someone watches it or someone plays it, it inspires that thing that they're good at, creatively.
Exactly. Yes.
Specifically, which is uncanny. Like in any other property, it's not like. I mean, I guess like if you could watch Fortnite, like if you can watch Fortnite, because I can't. But like, I guess that could inspire some to dance or cosplay. Other IPs do lend to have it, the creativity be above what the actual thing is about. But it's really like people have visceral connections to this game and to the people that it also connects with, which and it's such a global thing. It's a very powerful thing. I mean, I'm talking like it's some kind of like weird, cult or something. I mean,
but I think about that. Like in my more like introspective moments about the game, I do wonder about if it's a good thing that I think about Magic, 18 hours out of the day. Like I think about it so much. It has such a like dominating effect on my kind of imagination. Part of that seems like a little bit nefarious, a little bit dark.
Maybe.
But the other thing, yeah. But the other thing is, and maybe the kind of like ethos or drive behind my channel is that what you can think about that as is Magic is like a metaphor or a structure that can contain all these other ideas. You can use it as a springboard to think about a million different things.
Right.
So the fact that it gives you that language to work with could actually be a really positive thing. But it is interesting that the kind of grip it has on people, even when they're not playing it.
I watch a lot of movies, obviously. I like to talk film, and I know you have quite of a love for film as well. But
for sure, yeah.
It's like when you watch a certain film, you feel things, but it's kind of someone telling you what to feel, and it's in a specific genre, especially. But then when this, they come up with a new set and they're like, okay, the next one is going to be like a fairy tales, and we're going to have the gingerbread man, and that's all very cute. But
you love talking about that gingerbread man.
Everyone loves.
He's already the star of the set.
And how could it not be though? Although I do like I guess it's the Tom Thumb. Is that the fable where they put the children in the pie and they cook them? Isn't that it?
I'm sure it is.
Someone puts their thumb and says, "What a good boy am I." I think that's Tom. Anyways,
I'm confusing it with Thumbelina, I think.
Okay. There's some dark, grim fairy tale where they put the children in the pie and then they get rescued, but one of the cards one of the arts rather that they spoiled already for the upcoming set showed like this elderly hag lady like pushing a pie in there, and there's like hands sticking out, so it's nightmare fuel for sure. But
all those fairy tales are like at their roots they're nightmare fuel. They're designed to they're designed to give children nightmares. Exactly. So they don't do the thing they warn against.
If you really pick apart even like old school like nursery rhymes, they are the most they're more terrifying than anything that we're seeing today, like that's being pushed. It's scary, like Ring Around the Roses is scarier than it. So.
Well, that's why like there's like such a push to do like the like somber re-instrumentation or re-recording of children's fairy tales or children's nursery rhymes in like horror movies.
So you made a comparison essay, and this was my introduction to you, between Ravnica and film noir. It was an instant hit, previewing a Titus Lutner forest for Magic the Gathering via Vorthos Mike. Describe your range of emotions through that ride.
So one of my like favorite video series on YouTube through Magic on YouTube is the art set reviews that Vorthos Mike and Sam from Mystic Studies do. They used to do it for, I think they do it for Cool Stuff Inc. now, but every couple of sets they'll come out with these long form conversations that just kind of break down in great detail a few signature art pieces from the current set. And I love those videos because they succeed in a thing that I try to pull off with my channel, which is they're kind of a grab bag. They tell you about the art on the card, but they also tell you the kind of historical and cultural background that influenced that art. And I've always loved those videos. And Vorthos Mike kind of just cold called me. He messaged me on Twitter asking, he saw a few of my videos and he asked me if I'd like to help him with his preview cards. And it was just such a huge honor because I love the work that he does, both in text form and, like I said, those videos with Sam. And just working with him alone was a great honor. And then add on to that I get to talk about the work of Titus Lutner, which I have admired for such a long time. Basic land arts are really one of the things that is most evocative to me about the game. I love the basic land arts, and he's kind of the master of those. So in addition to the honor of working with Vorthos Mike, there was the honor of working in a way that allowed me to pay tribute to Titus. And the fact that he enjoyed the video, Titus that is, was like the third honor. So it was all around, it was just such an incredible experience. Yeah, it was a real pleasure and joy and honor to do that. And I'm happy with how the video turned out as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's such a cool, kind of evocative piece too, because like on surface level, there's so much going on with that forest, but then you dig deeper, you look closer, and that's just what he's just so good at. I'm a big Titus Lunter fan.
Yeah, me too.
Obviously, he's just such a good person too, and such a approachable person, especially for his level. Not everyone is.
That's what I really loved about your conversation with him, is that it showed how he came across that humility a little bit. Like he talked about like maybe the missteps or the things that he kind of, maybe, I don't want to go so far as to say regrets, but things that he feels were perhaps mistakes he made along the way. And you could really see how he learned the kind of artistic process that allows him to produce at the high level he does now. And that process, or that history, wasn't a straight road. There's a lot of like curves and missteps, like I said, along the way.
Yeah, I love his pieces. Like I said, he shoots everything. He creates everything very cinematically. Like his Wrath of Gods and like his oh
my god, that is it's incredible.
All these split seconds before the shit really hits the fan, which I quite enjoy. But yeah, like I 100% agree with you. I've always been obsessed with basic lands. Like that's always been. It just sounds so weird and maybe a little pretentious, but that's okay. A little pretentious didn't kill anybody. What I check for, as far as the art goes, if I can, when the sets are spoiled, I always go to the basic lands, whether that be in the Commander product or anything. It's just, obviously the full art land. I still think that at this point, I know it's supposed to be this trickling out, like special, thing on Hanukkah, but I really want full art basic lands, because that is what draws you to it. It's like everyone knows what it does. Like you don't need the big water spot of an island. Give me the full, because that's how you immerse in the game, right?
Yeah, I think they're slowly getting there. Like we now have the full art tokens. Like it's just by degrees they're slowly getting there, I think.
Yeah, I love that they brought back the Snowlands, because I was always a big fan, and I love that the fact that he did them as well.
Yeah, no better person for it. And in my video, we took a few quotes from him for the video, and he has this phrase that I think is so perfect for what makes Basic Land so compelling, which is he calls them the window into the world. I think that's such a concise and evocative way of putting it. Is they are the kind of most panoramic view we get of each of these planes, and especially when he's behind the design or the artistry of it, you get a lot of data through that,
right?
And very, really powerful stuff.
I think you've said before, when you were making content initially, it wasn't what we know a Groucho Marco video to be now. You were just doing like gameplays, right? Yeah.
I did. I streamed for a little bit, and I looking back on it, I can't believe I did this, because it sounds like such a ton of work to me now. But I used to do a tournament report for each SCG event, Grand Prix, every single event that came up. I would do like a tournament breakdown. I'd say, this is what I think was the major stories of the tournament. This is where I think it's going. Like the metagame is going to go from here.
That's kind of cool, man.
and this is something that people might not know from the content I put out now, because it's not something we generally co-associate. But I think I might be like a Vorthos spike, if those are compatible in any way.
Saw like the last thing that you commented on was how Brad Nelson was. You wanted to see Brad Nelson like cussing out Brian Braun-Duit in a room or something. But I mean, this is, you're still like have your thumb pressed firmly on the competitive scene, right? Like
certainly not as a player, but as an audience member, definitely. Right. I watch everything, and that was one of my favorite moments from the past week. So just to explain what happened there. So I was watching Brad Nelson, MPL member, play in the Phantom Legends tournament, and if you guys don't know, Brian Braun-Duit, another MPL player, lives in Brad's basement. And they were playing each other in the last round of the Swiss before it cut to, I think, top 4 for the tournament. And they were both, their records were already good enough for them both to kind of move on to the next stage. So it was more like a kind of chummy match between friends. I mean, two very competitive friends.
Yeah.
So they're
best in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the two best standard players at the moment, to be honest. And they're good friends, but they have a competitive streak, so they each want to win desperately. And right after Brad concedes the match, because Brian outplays him a little bit, Brad turns towards his floor, where he knows Brian is under him, and just screams "Fuck you!" And it's just a great moment, and a little bit, not to jump into a different topic, but a little bit indicative to me of what might be missing from the MPL weekly play, which the MPL weekly play at the moment feels a little bit sterile to me. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of stakes, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of room for the players' personalities to come through.
Right.
And just this moment was like more engaging and more kind of more tied me closer to these two players than the $2 billion they spent on the Mythic Invitational or whatever.
It's so bizarre, right? Because there was that major shift. I think it happened last year, of when they stopped becoming like pro tours, and it wasn't. It was about promotion, right? Like that's what we were shifting towards. That's why everything turned into Magic Fest, because they do want to be considered as like cons, like Comic-Con, like these big conventions, these big events for people that the game touches in all aspects, not just going to compete in the main and all this. But and then you hear mishandlings of artists, and then just other things. I do enjoy that they are they're featuring more content creators like Spice 8 Rack and Pleasant Kenobi and all them, and but then on the other side, the coverage is always an issue too. So I'm sure that they're going to figure it out, because they are getting a ton right lately, especially with all the online play. It took them a while to get Arena to be this monster that it has become, and it's even gotten me excited to play Brawl, which I couldn't care
I'm excited about that
before.
too.
So
I totally agree, and as much as I might criticize them, I do feel like they've made a ton of strides, even just like recently with their big announcement of like the future of competitive play that came out last week. Was it? I think it was last week. To me, that was like a really good sign that they still need to go a long way, but it showed that they kind of understood something that I feared that they were kind of, that was eluding them a little bit, which is that, like I said, there is an aspirational nature to this game where people want to play competitively, and they want that drive to climb. And I think as much good work as they've done with content creators, as you've said, as much good work as they've done to kind of promote people who can be the face of this game in ways that maybe a hyper competitive player cannot be, because they're just maybe too razor focused in on the competitive scene. They can't broaden that vision to inviting in new players. As much good as they've done on that element, I really do feel like they've kind of wavered a little bit on making sure that this long tradition of competitive play that has kept this game alive for a quarter of a century, which is a crazy thing to say,
right?
But it has kept it alive for that long. You can't mismanage that. And if your audience is looking for what to me was like such a super correct or super precise discussion on exactly why competitive play is so necessary, there's an episode of Dice to Removal, which is the conversational podcast between the Prof and Pleasant Kenobi. I think it's episode 14. It's called Disorganized Play. They just talk about their fears that competitive Magic is disappearing a little bit and what the stakes of that might be. I really encourage anyone who's interested in this to watch that video, because it will help you understand, if you're hesitant to acknowledge it, why this game needs high level of competitive play and why we should be worried if it wavers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll link it right here so people could go check that video out. I mean, think about it from WotC's perspective too, and I feel like they have to be so much for so many, you know. They have to
exactly.
They have to make sure that the pro play, you know, like the diehard poker players, like Eric Froelich doesn't give a shit that Gideon just got killed off. You know, it's just like he just wants to play the game and like make the monies. You know, but so you have to be what you have to.
I
be
want that on
him.
a T-shirt. Eric Froelich doesn't give a shit about Gideon.
Yeah,
give me his MPL photo where he's got his arm crossed and type over it, and I'll be as happy as you could ever make it.
Superimpose Froelich's face on Gideon. You know, it's just like the feel bads. No, but you know what I mean. It's just like. It has to be this. It has to be a novel. Like it has to be this IP where and now not so much a movie franchise, but now you know it's going to be finally it's going to be on the small screen on Netflix. It has to be that. It has to be poker. It has to be this and that. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to make everyone happy, but even small things, even small steps, like how they spoiled the last set in a thematic way. It's just like, I see you. Like, I totally appreciate this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a real masterclass. And I guess I should underline that I think both parties have, and by parties I mean the players and WotC, have an obligation here to underline this whole conversation with the fact that we all just are heavily invested in this game and love it very, very much and don't want to see harm come to it. Both sides feel that way. And I think each side gets worried that the other side isn't feeling that as much. But the truth is that we just all have different perspectives on how to best kind of steward this game into the future. Mm-hmm. And as long as we continue to hit on that point that, you know, we love this game, we love this game, we love this game, we just want the best for it, I think we're going to be more capable of having these conversations. I think players get hurt when they feel like they've been sidelined in this conversation, and WotC feels hurt that they have plans that they can't yet reveal, and they feel like they're getting a lot of shit for things that they're aiming to fix but have yet to do so. And I think it's tough, and I especially think this past year has been really, really tough on kind of mid-tier competitive players. I'm like, and I even made a video about how worried I was about that, like mid-tier of competitors, because I really think that where they go, so goes the game. So if they leave, like, that's a huge blow. That's such a huge blow, because I do think there's two main contingents that keep this game alive, which is the more kind of casual, maybe EDH flavor of folks who see this as the kind of the game that allows them to build the friendships that mean the most to them. And then there's the other side, which is like the competitive scene, which maintains the game as something where you have to buy the new packs, basically.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's impossible to get right 100% of the time. And I'm not like some shill for WotC. Who cares? You can't go into a Walmart and be like, you know, this sucks, or, you know, whatever, and then be like, oh, okay, well, let me actually change it, because they actually feel like they do. And they're a big corporation, but they're a subset. The little subset that they operate in actually feels like they listen. And that's a very different thing.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Let's go back to your channel specifically. I mean, it's not like I'm not having fun. This is great. But I mean, 7 videos currently. On that are featured on your channel. Are you working on anything now? I'm going to put the thumb screws to you. Anything that you could kind of tease, or, you know, and also, like, how necessary is it to take the time and do it right, like. Because, you know, you have people like myself, like, crank out like 5 videos. I'm like, here, love me. Like, here's all my shit all in your face all the time. But then you have people like yourself and like Connor and Sam that take a little longer. But when it finally pops, it's just like, God, whenever I get a notification for you or Spice 8 Rack, like, I will pull over on the side of the road and watch the damn thing, because it's just so great.
Yeah, I think that's just, like, not to get too, like, nitty gritty behind the whole thing, but I think those are just, like, the two paths. Like, you either have to be in someone's life all the time, you know, every day in their feed, so that they can get the new stream of content that they want, or you're a little more coy about it. You make them wait, and you or not make them wait, but you take your time and you develop it to the point where there's a a gap for you to occupy, a desire to see your content again.
Make them miss you.
Exactly. And honestly, like,
yeah,
I think there are pros and cons to both sides. Like, I think one of the cons to the approach that I have is if I do put anything in my feed that is not like a main, like what people expect as a main channel video, like if I stream or something, people sometimes react kind of offhandedly to it because they want the main thing that they're waiting for. It's kind of like if you follow Game of Thrones at all, that people, whenever George R.R. Martin shows up anywhere, whenever he has any fun, whenever he goes to the pool, whenever he goes to the washroom, someone's there to be like, you should be writing, George. And not like, I don't think of myself on that level at all, but I mean, that's the like mechanics of it. If you make people wait, they're going to be a little bit more, there's going to be a higher degree of pressure on you when you do put stuff out, because that pressure builds up. So that's part of your question. The other part is what I'm working on. So the other thing that I've had to learn as I got started as a content creator is like what's feasible to produce in a timely manner. And one of the reasons there's been a bit of a gap between my last video and this one, other than like life stuff where I've moved countries and I've got a new apartment and all that kind of junk, new job, all that stuff. But more frankly, I've had 2 projects that I had to kind of put aside because I realized if I work on these, it's probably going to take me like 3, 4, 5 months to get it done, based on the time I can allot to my channel at this point in my life. And what those 2 projects were, and I don't mind revealing it, although I might come back to them at some point, but just to like outline the time commitment that they presented to me. The first one was going to be called Role-Playing Ravnica, which was all about how the guild system influences the way people play Dungeons and Dragons with Ravnica, and how role-playing has always been a part of Ravnica before Dungeons and Dragons even got to be a part of it. How the guilds themselves represented a kind of role-playing that is in some ways why that plane is so near and dear to so many players' hearts, is that it in some ways allows them to express both parts of themselves that they acknowledge and parts of themselves that they didn't know was there, that they get to kind of play around in these other personalities that the guilds represent. And I watched a ton of footage for Dungeon Masters talking about the Guilds of Ravnica, or the Ravnica expansion book for Dungeons & Dragons. And I wanted to watch a bunch of like actual play campaigns of the Ravnica D&D, but I just looked at them all, and each campaign is like 60 hours. And I was just like, if I watch all of these and take notes about all of them and pull scenes from each of them, like that's going to take me ages to do. And I knew that as soon as I thought of the project, I wouldn't be able to put it out if I didn't include those things. Like I felt like if I was going to make a video about role-playing Ravnica, I'd want to have a ton of footage of people actually doing it. And so I said, okay, I can't, at this point in my life, at this point in my like career as a YouTube person, do that. And I'd like to come back to it eventually, but I'm not going to do it now. And the second one, which I'm much more determined to come back to, but has its own kind of time restraints, was kind of a profile of Marshall Sutcliffe, because I think he is a really important figure for this year of Magic, which is, and the reason for that is because I think there's been a huge anxiety around, is Magic a game that can be transmitted to a kind of global audience in terms of an esport? Like, is it too complex a game to be transferred over to a general audience? And the theory of the video was like, whatever anxieties we have about being at the top tier of esports, we already have a top tier commentator, which is Marshall Sutcliffe. He's incredible at his job, and there are a million facets that he does so expertly and makes it look easy while he does it. Mm-hmm. And the time constraint for that was just, there are, hundreds of hours of him doing commentary, and I want to go through them all, and I want to pull in out the best moments of it, but I have to put it aside for now because it's just too long. And so that gets me to where the project I am working on, which I'm almost done, which is it's called Frames of War, and it's about depictions of warfare in Magic the Gathering art.
Oh man,
focusing on War of the Spark.
Ah, excellent. All right, so first off, tune in this Tuesday because Tinsley Hooligans D&D. What's up?
I've been watching.
Well, that's probably how you don't do. In all fairness, Zuby does a great job as a dungeon master. It's just like the rest of us are just like drunken slobs throughout, and I'm just like more interested in doing a Christopher Walken voice poorly, but whatever gets the clicks, right? The whole pull to Ravnica in general, and it feels like you have that same pull that I always feel. I mean, everyone kind of identifies themselves, with a guild. Richard Garfield figured out as far as like catnip for people it was the color pie.
Yeah,
putting these things into so people could identify with certain play styles and just certain feelings and emotions and all that was masterful. And then when you kind of look into that a little bit more, or even scale it back, I guess, by adding a color, and then later on when you're adding another color with Alara and Khan's block, it's just people eat that up. Ravnica could really be anything. It's a film noir movie, like you've stated in your video. It's a hippie combine. It's a place of debauchery. It's everything that you want it to be, just like the game is. I would love if you did all your videos on Ravnica, because like seriously, like it feels like you have such a deep understanding for that aesthetic, and it's also has such a wide berth. Like I've been playing since the rocks were soft back in Ice Age, and Dominaria was the plane, right? Like that was what everyone loved, and I think since then then Innistrad came along and really gave Ravnica a run for its money, but just I think Ravnica is Magic's setting, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's the case too, because like obviously Dominaria should be, I mean, by all rights, it should be the home base of Magic, and is, at least from a story perspective. But it does feel like Ravnica has kind of taken that mantle and taken that kind of crown in a lot of ways, where that's at my old LGS, there was a guy who used to say Ravnica is the only Magic setting that felt real to him, and everything else was like you're a tourist in all these other planes, but Ravnica felt real and lived in. And I always thought that was an interesting way to put it, that like maybe it's just that we've spent such a large amount of time on Ravnica with the third block of sets there, but I don't think that's the only reason. We've spent an equal amount of time. Well, we've spent more time in Dominaria based on just sets alone, but at least for me personally, I'm much more. I feel more affiliated with Ravnica than I do Dominaria.
It's so funny too, because when they announced the whole return to Ravnica, and they're like the difference is autumn, and I'm like, are you kidding me? But then like when they showed it, they're like, hold on, stupid.
Such a bad pitch. I'll never understand why that was the headline. I mean, they pulled it off magnificently. I think they did beautiful work with both the like setting design and the individual work of the artist. But that pitch, boy, it's not a good headline.
Right? Yeah. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
So it's pumpkin spice lattes for all your centaurs, but they executed it well, and it had that tone of something's coming, something's right around the corner. And I another thing that I love about Ravnica, and again we're going off on a tangent, is that it plays with morality for its characters, and by characters I mean the guilds, because original Ravnica, you had Boros kind of forefront, the Dimir were the big bads, and then you had the Orzhov as kind of the unlikely heroes, with the Golgari, helping Argus Kos and all this old lore, and then you get to return to Ravnica, and it becomes the Izzet are now the villains, and I just like that, and of course the Azorius are kind of always boring, but also the ones that are morally ambiguous for being so cookie cutter, which I like they get to really play with those themes, and it's like a game of Clue. Like every time that you sit down at the game, you don't know who is going to be the killer.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And you look at someone like Lavinia, who the only way she can be aligned with the good is to like be a renegade from Missouri. It's so interesting how they both preserve those guild identities and like switch them around a bit. Yeah. Especially like I love that the Demir are like kind of the heroes this time around. It's just very very a very interesting move, and I think pulled off fairly well.
Yeah, I mean they're essentially the CIA of Ravnica, and it's just like, oh, okay. Once you put it there, it's like they're just the keepers of information, so they're not inherently bad, but unless there's corruption, but corruption could happen in any of the guilds. Kind of talking about your channel, fairly, I think there's been a lot of comparisons, and like I said before, there's such an ocean of content. You never have to search far if you want to consume some kind of Magic the Gathering content, and that's a plus. But there are just some that kind of rise up, and the ones that have been doing that lately, like Command Zone, what Jimmy and Josh are doing, they have a Magic TV show. They are the bar. The Professor's just been doing it for so long. He puts out great stuff. But then like the new school is the Pleasant Kenobis that dare to be a little bit off the cuff with Spice 8 Rack as well, which is just batshit crazy and just fantastic. But then there's also people like you and Sam, Ristic Studies, but I definitely put you in that echelon. And I know I'm not the only one that's done that. So does that add a lot of pressure to you when you're making a video?
I don't want to say it doesn't. I know people have certain expectations for what I'll put out, and sometimes that, I wouldn't say it puts pressure. It does determine what I do release. Like I could see myself having put out more stuff at this point if I wasn't thinking about that a little bit. Okay. If I wasn't thinking a little bit about, I would rather, I think, have a small range of videos that I can look back on and say, I think these are representative of my work. I'm still proud of them. Than to put out a bunch of stuff that would maybe make my intentions or my ideal for the channel less in focus, if that makes sense. To like dilute the message that I want to put out with my content, which is you can use this game to talk about things that might initially seem inapproachable through the realm or the lens of a card game. You can use this game to talk about these things. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease and like analytical rigor, I guess. And I wouldn't want to dilute that message that by putting out things a little bit more quickly, I think. And I think that's the way the pressure kind of develops for me or presents itself to me, is that I love this game. As I've said multiple times in this conversation, I love it so much, and I want to believe that we can use it to talk about all these other things. And if I want to kind of honor that mission, then I think I have to be a little hard on myself in terms of what I put out. And I think Sam from Ristic Studies is the like paragon of that. I think he is. He is a historic figure in terms of this game, in terms of what he has been able to accomplish within the framework of Magic art, or really just Magic analysis in general. He has raised the bar and kind of forced us to acknowledge that there's a complexity here that we should reckon with, acknowledge, and feel free to dwell in a little bit. That I think not enough content creators ask us to kind of reckon with, I think.
Let's talk about your commentary, because it relates to the real world. It's about family. It's about the entertainment industry, like we've stated. Healthcare, like you're popping on a magic video, and you're getting a healthcare lesson, which is awesome. But because it's done in such like an inviting and entertaining way, it's just like, I don't know. Do you feel like you're more inspired by how Magic fits into these realistic themes, or do you find yourself able to get a social message across because it's dressed in mana symbols? Like, is this kind of a Trojan horse using Magic as getting like topics talked about?
Yeah, people in the comments will sometimes suggest that I think that's a perfect way to phrase it, using Magic as a kind of Trojan horse, like slipping in other ideas. But I would just say that I really don't actually make that division in my mind. And I think I'd just go back to what I said earlier, where I'm thinking about Magic 24/7. It's like, it's the language of my brain in a certain way. And so it's not that I'm taking real world issues and filtering it through the lens of Magic. It's that Magic is perpetual lens that I have over my eyes, and everything comes to me through the language of Magic. So to me, I've drunk the Kool-Aid so hard that I don't even really make that distinction anymore. It's just, I find Magic a useful way to express how these other things go on in a person's life, or how these connections develop to these other topics in your life. And like you said about the kind of guild framework, there is a lot of social commentary in Magic itself. I think it would be unfair to categorize it as a game without politics. I think there's so much happening within the conversation of even the art on the cards. That to me the division just isn't there. And what I think the kind of animating principle of my channel is, let's talk about those connections, and talk about, like I said, how we can use this game to think about these issues and these problems outside of the 60 card or 100 card deck.
Absolutely. And I think that's another huge thing that WotC deserves kudos for, is taking that giant step, maybe being a trailblazer in being more open and being more diverse, and listening to not just one side of its, arguably maybe not just its most popular audience, right? It's just like it's branching off, and it's really trying to grow progressively and be a voice for people that don't really have one, or that don't feel,
at least within the game, maybe. Yeah,
you feel brave enough to really speak out, which is great. It's just another thing that this kind of company is doing for people, and it's kind of unprecedented. It's kind of cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I really also applaud them for how willing they are to kind of make these steps. And I think it's maybe a slight mischaracterization, though, that these whatever group we're talking about is not a major component of the game's population. Sure. I think what the truth is a certain demographic has maybe dominated the conversation around the game. I think I come back to all the time is, so in the same video about the healthcare system, there's a very small section at the end where I talk about trans issues a little bit. And there are so many people who message me about that segment, saying that it meant something to them to be acknowledged, and that it had a powerful effect on them. And I myself would never have imagined that there was a huge population of trans players in the Magic community. But I mean, they've come out and spoken. When you acknowledge them, they acknowledge you back, right? They feel seen, and they perhaps feel more willing to present themselves in what they perceive as a perhaps a safer space. So I think it's more than just kind of WotC pushing into new audiences. It's maybe WotC acknowledging audiences they already had, but have in the past maybe not spoken to directly.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for phrasing that better than I did.
No, I just wanted to expand on it. I don't think you phrased it improperly or anything.
Yeah. Let's talk about collaboration because you've done some. I mean, you've done some with like Orcs Head Magic, Albi MTG, yours truly. Is that something that you enjoy doing and something that you are going to be pursuing more in the future?
I would love to. I really, really enjoy doing it. I mean, I have no ambitions to be a big YouTube creator. I have no ambitions to make this a full-time thing. The reason I got into it is because, like I said, I watched a ton of content and I want to be a greater part of this community. So I think any chance I get to work with other people is always a huge blessing to me. The only issue I have is that my content is difficult to, or the content that I make is difficult to fit into the rubric that other people are working in. I don't make deck techs that much. No, I don't do deck techs. I don't make commander content, which is a huge portion of the YouTube Magic community. So it's not, I think that the more difficult thing is finding a place where other people can slot me in. I'm always happy to come on anyone's channel, but I don't always fit in those channels.
I don't know, man. I think you're a fantastic guest because you have that. I think you're one of the more versatile guests to have on. I mean, even when we were talking before we hit record, I was just like, hey, I could think of a movie that you would be great to come on and discuss film with because you have such a wide breadth. You're not just, because you see when, like, again, I use Josh and Jimmy as, like, a reference where they try to do anything that's not Commander and they get, like, panned for it. And it sucks. I would not like to be that person that has to be pigeonholed and talk about the thing, specific thing, where you could kind of go over, you could talk about competitive play, you could talk about EDH, you could talk about draft, there's a lot of things that you have a voice about. So I think that makes you an even more versatile guest.
Yeah. And certainly in these, like, I think where I might be able to collaborate most effectively is in things like this, where it's pretty conversational. Like I'm always game to come on any kind of podcast or any kind of video conversation about the game. I think about it and I participate in so many different forms of Magic that I'm super available for anything like that. But in terms of actually like collaborating, in terms of we're going to make a video where we present, I don't know. Maybe I'm not presenting this well, but I sometimes when I think about working with other people, I don't know what that would look like, I guess.
Sure.
It's more about, at least with my content, it's I'm confident Magic can be all these other things. I'm confident Magic can be, I don't know why I keep coming back to deck techs, but I guess it's because it's a huge portion of YouTube videos. We know that Magic can be used to have a conversation about the game itself, and I'm interested in seeing if we can use the game to talk about other things, and I want to push myself to always work in that territory because I know it's not the things we immediately go to when we think of the game. And that's the only way I would rephrase it, probably.
Sure. And you said you don't have any aspirations to make this a full-time gig, but what is your goals? Like when your first couple videos like got a couple thousand views, I mean, that had to have been like, oh crap, like the newer videos, like the essays that you've been doing. So I mean, of course you've had to have thought of it. Is this more of it like an invested hobby, or is this something that you think may become something like fiscally tangible for you?
I would be very skeptical that it could ever be fiscally possible, and maybe that's just me with the limitations of what I see now. But it seems very, very tough to make that happen, and sure. I think part of it is being able to produce at a much quicker rate than I'm able to do. So, at least on that aspect, I have my doubts. But I think the other more important thing is that's just really not the parameters of success that I've set for myself, which is we were talking a little bit about stand-up comedy before the podcast started, and I can't remember which comedian I saw say this, but they were talking about how they first became like enamored with stand-up comedy, and the way they describe it is they saw comedians at a club coming off the stage and going to a table where they'd all discuss the show for the night, and the way that this comedian said they pictured success is being invited to that table. And it's a very like high school idea of making it. Yeah. But it's like that idea is very central to the way I think about success in terms of YouTube. I just want to be able to engage and speak with folks like you, Sam from Ristic Studies, Forthos Mike, Connor from Spice 8 Rack, Pleasant Kenobi, all these people that I just love the stuff they put out. I just want to hang out with them, and maybe that's an unambitious thing to say, but I mean it's
not at all. Not at all, man. Like I mean, now that I'm in my 30s and have a huge family of my own, it's hard. Mm-hmm. And I moved. I moved across the country as well, so it's just like now the friends that I've made through this I didn't expect to have and to be this meaningful, which is like awesome. I mean, a major level up moment would be to actually go to one of these Magic Fests and get invited to one of Nick Prince's brunches, like, 'cause they just look fantastic.
That is the true coronation. That's when you've made it.
Yeah,
when you get to that Prince table.
I want a monster mimosa. Even though I hate Red Bull, I will drink it with Nick Prince. I'm still supposed to eat like shark pea with Olivia. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of weird things that
I think that's a trap, John. I don't know anything about this agreement you have, but I think you should maybe find a rain check for that one.
She ate some weird congealed shark pea in Scandinavia or like Iceland or something. She's like, it's like a rite of passage up there. It's like a delicacy. So I'm like, okay, whenever we hang out, that's what we'll do. Sure. All right.
Well, I can't imagine a better hangout.
Right, of course. Let's go to Face the D20. That's right. We're going to end this awesome show. I mean, does it really feel like a show? I feel like I've just been like hanging out with a friend. Groucho's going to spin a D20, and each number on the dice correlates to a non-Magic the Gathering related question. So we get to know a little bit more about the man behind the videos, the cards, so to speak. So, sir, you down for this?
Yes, I'm using a phone app because I'm a 21st century man. But I will spin this digital D20.
Perfect.
I got a nat 20.
Oh, geez. I forgot if that's good or not. If you had to get stuck in an elevator for 8 hours, besides immediate family, who would you choose to be stuck with?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I have a friend I've known since I was 5. I won't say their name here just because I don't know if they'd be comfortable with that. But being with them is like being by myself. There's no kind of layers between us anymore. It's just like we know each other back and forth. So probably that. Or maybe like someone like, someone who could get me out of there. Like maybe like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just rip open the doors or whatever. One of the two. Take your pick.
I don't know his ripe old age at this point, but
I will stand for a lot of things, John. But if you're going,
let's go.
Yeah, let's not get distracted, guys.
Spin again.
Okay, I got a 14.
14. Your favorite non-Magic YouTubers?
Oh, that's easy. Super Eye Patch Wolf is my favorite non-Magic YouTuber.
Never heard of them. What do they do?
They do very, very not super long, like half-hour videos, video essays about whatever topic they feel like discussing. It ranges from like wrestling to anime to The Simpsons to any number of other things. But what I take from Super Eye Patch Wolf is there's always like a really strong emotive core or emotional core to his videos. He's not just giving you like trivia. He's also telling you why these things matter and why you should care about them.
Very cool. All right. I will have to check them out. I always love this question because I get to like discover new things and new creators I've never heard. So, all right, let's go a couple more times when you're ready, sir.
7.
Number 7. If you could tour with any music artist, who would it be?
So my favorite musician is MF Doom, but he frequently sends I don't know how he calls them Doom bots, but they're fake versions of himself to his shows.
Sure.
So I think that would be weird. I wouldn't want to do that. So instead, I will say, who would I want to go on tour with?
I saw that you got kissed by some musician.
Yeah, Annie Clark from St. Vincent. I think there's just too much raw sexual tension between us. No, let's say Annie Clark from St. Vincent. No. Actually, David Byrne, formerly of Talking Heads. I would love to hang out with him.
Oh my God.
I don't think he tours that frequently, but next time he's out on the road, I'd like to go with him.
That would be so much fun. He made one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
One more time.
4.
Number 4. Favorite place you've ever visited? You got some good questions, man.
Yeah, I like these.
You're rolling well.
A cliche answer is Paris. I was there and I was really enamored with that city. But maybe a little bit more personally, let's say, my favorite place I've visited is probably. No, let's stick with Paris. I went there with someone I was dating, so it had extra relevance. So it's a magical place that I think everyone should go at least once.
Paris is hard to beat, man. Like, yeah.
Right.
I've never been, and that's already the favorite place that you've ever visited for me. So
it's got this weird like blue glow to it. The whole city has. If it was a magic color, it would definitely be blue.
A blue glow? Because you always imagine like a yellow glow because you could see the stars and then like all the street lamps and stuff like that. But I never thought blue.
Blue, yeah. Like misty blue in the day and then like a dark navy blue at night.
French food is very underrated. Not to French people, of course, because they know what they're getting. But any chance
well, compared to...
What's that?
Compared to congealed shark pee.
You know
Most
what?
things probably taste pretty good.
Olivia Gobier Hicks, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, it's any chance I get to eat at a French restaurant. There was a great one in Vegas that I used to take my wife to all the time. But yeah, they're kind of hard to come by. It's just like, oh, what do you feel like tonight? You know, Mexican or Italian, French. And it's just like, it's not one of those that you could just kind of find.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's a good like takeout thing,
right,
which is what holds it back a lot, probably.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. You have survived. Face the D20, sir.
It did not feel that. They did not feel that difficult to survive. They were very pleasant questions, is what I'm saying.
They really were. You've already kind of spoiled the video that's coming up, but any projects or anything that you want to tease or spoil for the group, and then where can everyone find you, sir?
I've just started working on an additional project. I think for the end of year, I'm gonna make a video about 10. I'm usually not like a big list person, but I'm thinking I'm gonna just like pull together really significant Magic YouTube videos from over the year and present those in a video. So I've started like collecting those a little bit, looking around, finding the ones that I think are really, really excellent, and then I'm gonna work on that. Probably release it sometime in December. I'll have other things before then, but that's a like long-term goal, I guess. And as for where you can find me, you can find me on YouTube at Groucho Marco, or on Twitter at Groucho Marco MTG.
Excellent, man. Yeah, if you could release that December 20th, have a nice birthday present for Johnny Boy.
I didn't know that was your birthday. Yeah, I probably will release it like around then.
I share a birthday with Jonah Hill and Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland? I never say his name.
Kiefer.
Right. Kiefer Sutherland.
His dad was born in my hometown.
Donald Sutherland. Wow. He's still alive, right?
I think so.
You and I can't even do a sign-off without going on a weird tangent. Like, this is unprecedented.
Wait, the Sutherlands are not a common topic of conversation.
It is when we're talking, buddy. Yeah. All right. If you like what I'm doing here, you could subscribe to the channel, like, share. That seems to be the best $0 way to support the creators you love. Tell them, tell people about them. Tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell your dog that we exist. That's always nice. If you want to follow me personally, I love talking Magic the Gathering. I love talking movies, films, all that good stuff. You can find me at OrzovDunn on the Twitters. But until next time, Planeswalkers, I'll see you all in the multiverse. Planeswalking in from the Great White North of Taranto. Oh, fuck you.
Have you ever seen the movie Enemy?
Wow. Taranto. I swear that's never happened before. Okay.